Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show on Tuesday, November 19th. Surely Thanksgiving's in 2 days, Denny. Nope, it's in 9.
It's not.
It is in 9. That means we've got a lot of football news to talk about between now and the biggest NFL day of the year. We've got changes afoot in New York City. It's really surprising coming from two of the league's most stable franchises in the Giants and Jets, Denny. The G-men changing quarterbacks, the Jets changing everything. They've already fired their coach. They've now fired their general manager, Joe Douglas. We'll get into the fallout. I mean, the fallout is, of course, both these are awful teams that are somehow now even worse. And then we will break down Monday Night Football. By breakdown, I mean like Cooper Rush, ? Rico Dowdle, ?
Talk about how Mike McCarthy said after the game, I probably should have played Trey Lance.
Yeah, I know. That's not even a like that. No, was actually not a bit for once. Like our tone of voice, that is just what he said. Yeah, probably should have done that. Then we have to also talk about the Texans being quote good, but also quote very, very bad. Yeah. They are no good despite being good. We'll preview Thursday Night Football this week. Steelers, Browns, 36.5 game total. Then Anthony Richardson, Bo Nix, Michael Evans, JSN, Jauan Jennings, Jaden Daniels, finally some exciting players later there. But first, I have to say to listeners of the podcast, you missed me on Monday night. I wasn't here. That's because I was supporting and celebrating America, Denny. I was at the U.S. men's national team, CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinals, second leg in St. Louis. We beat Jamaica 4-2. And my only question is, where were you? Where were you? Why did you not buy a plane ticket and come to St. Louis?
I didn't even know what sport you were talking about until you got to the end of that whole spiel. It's soccer, correct?
It is soccer, Denny. CONCACAF and all its glory. And it's where were you? I thought you loved America.
Yeah. I mean, I do, but maybe not that much to be at a CONCACAF game.
It was also raining really hard.
Yeah, sounds miserable. I'll be honest.
It was kind of rough. We were like halfway. I had 2 shock tops though, Denny. That was good.
Oh, hey, as long as you didn't go over 2.
I know. I did not. Listen, they were pints, so it gets kind of fuzzy there.
Well, that you put yourself in danger of a dad hangover. That's what
I hadn't had a shock top in like 5 years.
They're pretty good.
Well, they're for a national beer. They're fine. I usually go local, you haven't heard of most of my
You usually go local, you snob.
I actually do. St. Louis has so many good local breweries, but
yeah, it also has Budweiser.
It does. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of it. Well, it's so funny. One of my favorite things is when you go to a restaurant and they have like 2 local beers or like 2 craft beers on the menu, and they put like the city of origin, like Auburn Hills, Michigan. But then they do it for all the beers, and like I'll say Bud Light, St. Louis, Missouri. Like, yep. I don't think everyone probably already knows that. B, no one cares.
No, where they I'm sorry you don't like your own hometown.
No, we care here, is what I'm saying. That's all we got. It's churning out Bud Light. What was I going to say, Denny?
Really sorry, interrupted that.
No good football players in New York. It's basically where we're going to go.
Yep.
We'll start with the Giants, I guess, since this involves actual players. They were on bye in week 11. Everyone knew, like it was like the definition of the worst kept secret that when they came back from bye, they were going to bench Daniel Jones.
Right.
Maybe they told him after their week 10 game, but they made him wait for the public reveal until Monday. Everyone knew that part. We didn't know that it was going to be for Tommy DeVito and not Drew Lock. I mean, you can quibble with it. I mean, doomed ship either way. I guess that they think, obviously Drew Lock is a known commodity and there's like nothing more to reveal there. I guess they think there's maybe potentially just possibly more to reveal with Tommy DeVito, but what is your take on this? Why was it Tommy DeVito?
I'm going to quibble. You said you can't quibble. I'm going to quibble. Okay. And I'll say that this is clearly a tank job. Like they're not putting Drew Lock in because they might accidentally win a couple games.
I would say it's not clearly a tank job because Drew Lock is the tank job. Like they're both tank jobs. I think what it is. They're both tank jobs.
No, Drew Lock is Steve Young compared to DeVito. I mean, DeVito is truly. I have some numbers to share if you don't mind. I mean, just to highlight how awful he was last year. I know it's a fun story. His agent dresses funny and all that, but
by the way, I posted this. I quote skied this. When you say Tommy DeVito, I can only picture the agent I genuinely had no clue what Tommy DeVito looked like.
I know.
Picturing the agent in the fedora.
The first thing I saw when DeVito was named the starter was some beat writer post, Tommy DeVito no longer lives with his mother, BTW.
Forgot about that one too. That
really
was
great.
Good.
Yeah. All right. So last year, as the Giants starter, second lowest dropback success rate. Only Zach Wilson was worse. Second lowest air yards per attempt. Sixth worst completion rate over expected. I mean, it honestly it doesn't get much worse. And Daniel Jones is way better for the rest of this offense than DeVito. DeVito is the end for everybody. Neighbors becomes questionable as a starter with DeVito under center.
I don't know. I mean, DeVito. First off, you weren't saying worst. You had to keep putting a number ahead of worst. So there were players that were somehow worse than him last year, Denny. And Drew Lock might have been very similar in those regards. The DeVito thing is that he takes so many sacks. He takes like an ungodly amount of sacks, including one of the 2023 stats I had seared in my memory. I couldn't remember against the team, but was Tommy DeVito taking 9 sacks?
Washington.
It was in a win over Washington, actually. 31-19 victory over the Commanders a year ago today, apparently November 19th. He took 9 sacks.
Wow.
In that game.
Yeah. I'm seeing the stat you're talking. Well, not that exact stat, but as far as pressure to sack rate, 37% of his pressures ended in a sack. That's the highest in the league last year. That's crazy.
I mean, that is the defining Tommy DeVito stat, but I don't know. There's a huge difference between him and my guy Drew Lock as passers. Just to be frank, no. And I do think the Giants view it either way. This is a tank job. All right, like don't get it like we're tanking. It's just like, can we also have fun while tanking? There's no hidden layers to Drew Lock, as much as it pains me to admit it for my fellow Mizzou alum. Never mind, man. I was to say maybe they think there's some hidden layers. Tommy, this guy's 26. Like,
no, man, no.
What the hell? I thought he was like 23 or something. No. 26.
Tommy DeVito,
a joke.
Honestly, Tommy DeVito would not start in the XFL, and I mean that. Like, if he were in the XFL, he would be a backup. So I just, it's a tank. It's like a crazy tank. It just destroys all my neighbors' teams. I'm very upset.
This guy's 26. He was an undrafted free agent last year. We got to figure out what is going on in college football, man. Like, I feel like the average age in college football now is like 24.2.
Yeah, I mean it's
Tommy
gonna
DeVito
get
is actually
older.
young. Yeah,
it's gonna get older too. I think Tua's brother was like 32 years old when he left Maryland.
It's not a joke. You know that Miami. This is. I swear to you, this is not a joke. This is legit. Miami has a 9th year senior.
Yeah, tight end. Yeah. It's just insane. I mean, he's older than me, if you can believe it.
It's like totally insane. Like, listen, genuinely, not to get political, you should not have a tight end on your team that has spanned both Trump administrations. Like, you cannot have that. Like, that's too old. That is way too old for our Miami guy. But I don't know. I don't know if he truly destroys all the Giants. What's the difference? I mean, Daniel Jones was helping the league neighbors. Like, give me a break.
I would, if from a fantasy standpoint, I feel way better about Jones than I do DeVito if I have neighbors, which I do.
There's no difference. Tommy DeVito actually passes. At least he actually wants to throw the ball. Daniel Jones just wants to stand around, like, make sure he has an absolutely perfect pocket. And I took a sack if I don't. And if I do, I just throw a short pass. Like, Tommy DeVito's at least out there to be like a psycho.
There are levels of bad, and we've reached a new level with the Giants. Like, they are going to lose out.
They were losing out with Daniel Jones though.
No, they weren't. They were gonna win a game or two.
DeVito is the Jameis Winston of Daniel Jones's. I heard it here first.
You know, that whole setup online. I never understand it. I have my brain doesn't grasp it.
You know, grasp that's a pretty straightforward one, actually. He's the Jameis Winston of Daniel Jones. He's like if Daniel Jones suddenly got the Jameis mentality.
Oh, okay.
First off, you're sitting here telling me you're not making any Tommy DeVito DFS lineups against the Bucs.
Oh, 0.
What? Yeah. Well, you used to be a man. You used to be Denny.
No.
Denny would be talking Tommy DeVito lineups. You'd have at least 3 of them. Playing the Bucs, man. The Bucs.
Look,
the Bucs we're talking about.
Oh, the Bucs. No, it doesn't matter. Are you kidding me? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who they're playing. Yeah, I mean, you're streaming the Bucs defense over everyone. It's going to be amazing.
The Bucs, I think they're one of only like 4 teams that's allowed 20 passing touchdowns. They're really low on the sacks here. DeVito is going to eat, man.
Yeah. What?
Oh, he's not going to eat. But
no, he's not going to eat.
I'm still easily starting Neighbors. I'm not worried about Neighbors against the Bucs.
Okay. I'm just saying, like 10-team league, you don't have to start him.
Well, Nate, I thought you were saying, well, obviously you're not starting DeVito.
No,
you're not starting Malik Neighbors, and get out of here, man.
In a 10-teamer, I think he would be better.
Tommy DeVito supported like Wan'Dale Robinson last year. He can support Malik Neighbors.
Yeah,
our dude took 9 sacks and won a game. You gotta believe.
What are you talking about? What does winning and losing have to do with anything?
You gotta expand your mind. I'm saying he's terrible, but he's got some little sauce. Primavera sauce.
I mean, I'm trying to think of guys I would start over Neighbors. It gets pretty bleak.
No, Neighbors is still good to go.
You're starting Ridley over Neighbors easily.
No, actually, no.
What?
No. Oh wow, yeah, I got the PS5 version of Tommy DeVito and Will Levis. So yeah, I'm so excited.
This is insane. I feel like I'm on crazy pills.
You are. You're a hater on Tommy.
I didn't know you were the biggest Tommy DeVito backer in America.
He's our guy is not. There's no difference between him and Drew Lock. That's what you got to understand. There's no difference between Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock things. There's no point in talking about this anymore. There's no point in talking about the Jets either. I mean, who cares?
I mean, honestly, like
Jets fire another guy. The banner headline: Jets fire dude, and our readers like to scroll down. Like, who cares? Like they fired another guy.
If I weren't so lazy, I would have made the Aaron Rodgers Grim Reaper meme where he's going door to door, and he got Mike Williams, he got Saleh, now he gets Douglas. He's coming for Woody Johnson
himself. The next one is Rodgers getting cut.
That's you got to do that. Can you please do that?
Rodgers might get cut down the stretch and then is forced into retirement. But so Joe Douglas hired in 2019, 5.5 years on the job. Denny 30-64. Yeah. And I did a write up on him, obviously in my annual GMs thing, and just the crux of it was, listen, it's not a good plan, but he does have a plan, and it's being all in on Aaron. And I talk about how New York, like you're never allowed to have like a normal plan. There's always got to be like a shortcut. And his shortcut was Aaron Rodgers. I said it was looking more like a short circuit. And unfortunately could not have been more right there.
Well, you and Kevin Clark talked about in the offseason where he said the Jets are like the old school baseball team that gets the big hitter for no reason at the trade deadline. We just need an extra little pop here, and that's what they keep doing, and they're not patient, and they're not willing to build the team, and it's a disaster, and they're years away from relevance.
The New York Jets are the Anaheim Angels of Philadelphia 76ers, basically, is what it boils down to. So they fired Joe Douglas, the GM. Which team would you rather be for the next 3 years? The New York Giants or the New York Jets? Because these are like bottom 3 situations in the entire league. Like, man, like the books are cooked in both these places.
Yeah.
Bottom 3 situations. Who is down worse, the Jets or the Giants?
I think the Jets are down worse. I think the Giants, the defensive line is good. Secondary is okay. They have Tyron Tracy, who's very promising. And then of course Neighbors is the big one. So I would rather be the Giants pretty easily. I know, they have Garrett Wilson or whatever on the Jets side of things, but the Giants are in, I think, better position to be relevant more quickly.
I think the best of the 4 units is probably still the Jets defense, I'll say though. And like it's collapsed on Robert Saleh, but if they get like a real defensive mind, that can maybe be like the baseline for whatever comes next. And the Giants defense isn't bad either. They have similar offensive skill talent, actually. I just think the Jets are probably down worse by virtue of like the Giants don't have good ownership. It's so much better than Woody Johnson though. Like the Giants occasionally like get things right and like have an actually good. They're not as prone either to the big hitter syndrome of the Jets. Like the Giants, like to their detriment, will try to build a team normally, and they went way too normally with Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably the tiebreaker. The Giants, I think, are in a little better financial shape. I mean, the cap, whatever, is as real as you want it to be. It's not fake. but it's definitely not real. But the Giants are in a better situation, I think, than the Jets. And I think their ownership tilts in their favor, where they're not down quite as bad.
Yeah, I mean, Woody Johnson just wants to win now, and he'll do anything to do that, and that's not going to work. It's just not going to work. It would be weird though if the Jets just did get patient with whoever they hire next as a general manager, because like you said, I mean, the defense is good. Like you piece together, you get a viable quarterback in there. They have Breece Hall.
They have Breece and Garrett Wilson. I mean, they could still have Devontae. Honestly, what they're going to do is they're not going to rebuild, and they're going to do like the soft rebuild, or like we're not signing anybody except for Russell Wilson. We're signing Russell Wilson, and like we're not like we understand. We're maybe not a Super Bowl contender. We like this roster though, and with Russ, who knows what could happen? And we're 0-11, but still. But you never know what could happen.
If the Jets want a good offense, they should build a dome, and then they'll be fine.
Then you look up the past. I think when was the last team that had a dome that even won a Super Bowl?
I don't care about
Chiefs, no dome. Patriots, no dome. Bucks, no dome. You should look into that's analytics right there.
Yeah, right. You got me there.
Got you real good there. I got you on something. I don't have a segue to this. We're talking about Monday Night Football, where I just desperately needed Joe Mixon to stop running, and he finally did. After that third Mixon touchdown, I was like, the Cowboys, please go slow and get one first down, and they did that. So to me, it was a successful Week 12 for the Dallas Cowboys, Denny. I don't see the problem. I don't know why people are complaining so much about the Cowboys. They prevented Joe Mixon from scoring a fourth rushing touchdown.
It's a fine defense. Oh man, how mad were the Cowboys getting at the end there? They were so mad. I saw like Micah Parsons throwing Robert Woods to the ground for no reason. Bobby Trees, one of the last millennials in the league. You're throwing the millennials around, Micah. What are you doing?
What are you doing? What are the Cowboys doing, Denny, other than starting Cooper Rush? Listen, so it was a better flavor of bad for Cooper Rush last night, where Cooper Rush Week 10 was like, yeah, this is over bad. Cooper Rush last night was this is PPR scam bad. Like, this is going nowhere, but he's still targeting people. He's dropping back like 75 times. He's targeting like CeeDee Lamb like 15 times on those. Yeah. But he was not good, of course. He did compile, very empty compiling. After the game, Mike McCarthy said, yeah, we should have gotten Trey Lance a series or two. Are you heartened at all about Cooper Rush at least looking like he's not going to nuke everyone else's fantasy value? Or is this like there's just nothing to read into this? We're still worried heading into Week 12 against the Commanders. What's the current state of the Dakless Cowboys offense?
Yeah, you're talking about a Cowboys defense that had a 78% drop back rate against Houston on Monday night. That was 6% over expected.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and that's what I mean is just junk, volume driven, garbage time sort of production. Who cares about Cooper Rush? We don't care about him for fantasy, but for CeeDee Lamb, for Ferguson if he's okay. For who was the random receiver who was catching balls?
Kevontae Turpin went quote sicko mode.
No, not Turpin. I know Turpin.
Brevin Spanford also went sicko
there you go, the tight end. Yes.
Luke Schoonmaker sicko mode.
Sicko mode.
Jalen Tolbert did not go sicko mode though. Ryan Flournoy also not sicko mode.
Yeah, the Span Ford, who I've actually blurbed before, and I had like 5 to 7 tabs open on Span Ford at one point. But yeah. So I mean that could feel it. They're 10.5 point dogs against Washington this week. Like we could see it. We could see them doing an 80% drop back thing again.
Who are the Commanders beating by more than 10 points at this point? Like, let's be real.
Cowboys.
I don't know, man. The Commanders they've gone to like full retreat mode, or like I think probably because of the Jaden Daniels injury. They're almost like saintsing a little bit, or they're not doing any of the cool stuff.
No,
anymore.
They're not doing cool stuff anymore. No, and also they're trying not to lose. They freak themselves out. And this happens with young teams, with teams that were not supposed to be good, right? I mean, this was supposed to be a pretty bleak year for Washington, right? And so they find themselves at 7-2 all of a sudden. And they're like, wait, what? Wait, we're good? Oh, well, we have to continue to be good. We're going to try not to lose games from here on out. And they easily lose the next 2.
Yeah, they're like a 14 seed in the NCAA tournament that's been winning the entire game. And when it becomes clear they might actually win the game, they start they start bricking everything. They start committing horrible turnovers. That's actually a pretty good theory on the Commanders.
Yeah.
Well, they got to get out of their own heads. They got to get out of their own
Texans did that last year. It wasn't supposed to be good last year. They won like 5 or 6 straight in the middle of the season. And then they were like, well, we got to run the ball until we lose.
So you're not worried about starting CeeDee Lamb, though? Even with like the Trey Lance, I was a little ominous for CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I do. Lance is a whole different thing because you're talking about, okay, 70% drop back rate, 80%, whatever, but you're talking about trimming off 10 to maybe 15 passes because of the rushing.
I thought you were going to say percentage, but I'm like, dude, like,
no,
go lower than that.
No, 10 to 15%. No, I mean, not percent, but like, because he'll just take off. Like he'll do the one read and then he'll just go. And that's Cooper Rush is not going to do that.
Trey Lance, if Trey Lance got to 30 attempts in a start, it would be the most stunning stat in NFL history to me. I think you got to go even more, like 25 to 30 attempts off of what we got from Cooper Rush last night. I mean, not that Cooper Rush would be attempting 56 passes a week, but I would be stunned if Trey Lance ever reached 25 attempts in a game if he became a starter.
Right. So even if, right. So you get 10 targets for CeeDee Lamb, 10 very low quality short targets. It's not great.
Not great. I've sidelined this discussion though. It's Cooper Rush is starting, and I guess if Cooper Rush starts and like Trey Lance just Taysom's, we still feel okay about CeeDee Lamb. Anything on Rico Dowdle, by the way? Who Mike McCarthy is like speaking from the heart lately because last week's like, man, we should have been playing Rico Dowdle this whole time, and they are doing that now, but it's in like this horrible game scripts. Too late, basically, for Rico Dowdle or anything actually encouraging coming out of this game against.
I mean, it's hard to say because it's like Zeke got playing time late because it was a blowout. I'm guessing that wouldn't have happened if the game would have been even within reach. I'm looking at the route running data. You have Rico Dowdle with 23 routes on 52 dropbacks. Ezekiel Elliott at 21. So they split that up, but maybe Rico would have seen a lot more if it had been somewhat competitive. But then you get back to the main problem, which is how can we project a Cowboys game to be competitive going forward? It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be very hard to predict.
It is. And the Commanders for this week, I believe, the Commanders have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL.
They do. They're a run funnel, yeah.
So Rico, 6 teams on bye. Rico, my initial rankings run through. I had him just outside the RB2 range, but so maybe this is the point I should have made about Rico. You probably came out of last night's game thinking like, well, the Rico Dowdle RB2 ship, which had never been here, has definitely sailed. But then I tell you, well, there's 6 teams on bye, and the Commanders are absolutely horrific against the run. So maybe it has not sailed. Denny, what is going on with the Texans passing attack? Like they get Nico Collins back. So that was the latest thing. Like, listen, the Texans been dysfunctional on offense. They're not explosive. They're not passing. Like, they're not getting any aerial production. Now they're facing this awful Cowboys defense. They're getting back what could be maybe secretly the best receiver in the entire NFL, but just the same old deal. 23 of 34. I did get over 250 yards finally, C.J. Stroud, but no touchdowns. No one over 54 yards. Maybe the bad defense factor was that he could just spread it around, which is what he did. But just another non-explosive game for this Houston's passing attack. Coming in now, Titans not a good team. They do have a good pass defense for Week 12. What is the state of this Texans passing attack that continues to be one of the most underachieving units in the entire league?
Yeah, I mean, Nico Collins had a long touchdown called back in this game on a penalty. So that would have changed everything, obviously, for the fantasy conversation. But, I mean, I think we said a couple weeks ago that, like, CJ Stroud's probably not a must play in 12-team leagues, in one quarterback leagues. I mean, you're obviously starting him in Superflex, but I don't think you need to feel tied to him. Like this past week, I might have dabbled with some Jameis over some Stroud, that sort of thing. I mean, this Texans offense is plainly just not good. 19th in EPA per play. They're below the Jets. They're below the Seahawks. That's awful. They're very, very run heavy, especially a neutral and positive game script. Their defense is so Stroud has everything working against him from a fantasy standpoint. Okay. They have a good running game. Mixon's on fire. The offensive line's blocking well, right? And the defense is good. So the Texans are really never in a position where they have to say, okay, we gotta drop back and let it rip, right? So where does it come from? He doesn't run, not really anyway. So you're hoping for big plays. He's going to be big play reliant, and that's not really what you're looking for.
And I guess that's the only good news is we're hoping for big plays, and there was no hope of big plays without Nico Collins. Tank Dell's not having a normal season. The Titans actually allow the fewest passing yards in the NFL, but it's partly because teams just dominate the game flow against them, and you don't have to pass. And that's really probably just the story of C.J. Stroud's fantasy status in Week 12. As you just laid out, you do not have to ask the Texans twice to run the ball.
No.
And they're going to be able to do that at will against the Titans. I have still, even with 6 teams on bye, I have C.J. Stroud outside the top 12. I'll ask you a few real quick. C.J. Stroud or the dreaded Patrick Mahomes against the Carolina Panthers, Denny.
Oh, man. I feel like the Mahomes thing could go so sideways against Carolina.
Well, no way. What do you mean?
Sideways, like the Chiefs just get up by 1 million.
How would they get up by 1 million? Maybe they
would establish the run.
Maybe the best player on planet Earth finally does anything.
I feel like I would not be surprised if I checked, on Monday morning. It's like, oh, Patrick Mahomes scored 8 fantasy points in a 45-point win. I think I'd go Mahomes still.
I'm going Mahomes just because the matchup is so good. And the Chiefs running game, it's been fine. They're probably getting Isaiah Pacheco back this week. The Chiefs running game is not exactly humming. I think Mahomes will probably pass more than C.J. Stroud this week. Jameis Winston on the short week against the Steelers with this horrid 36.5 game total, which to me it seems like a smash the over spot. Denny, I'll just be honest. I think people are kind of overrating the Steelers defense, and I'm talking now, and Denny can't hear me. He's dropped out. He's frozen and scared. Now I'm frozen and scared. But this is my long way of saying I still have Jameis Winston ranked ahead of C.J. Stroud. As concerned as I am about the Steelers matchup, I just think Jameis, he's going to throw 45 times against whoever he plays against. And 45 times against the Saints is going to equal a lot of production. No turnovers, thankfully, for Jameis Winston. 45 attempts against the Steelers is probably going to result in 3 or 4 turnovers. But I'm just going to keep believing the Jameis Winston volume, Denny. Did you hear anything I just said?
I did. Sorry about that. Yeah, listen, the Steelers are not a pass funnel, but they're a good run defense. Let me tell you something about Nick Chubb. Great story. Not ready.
No.
Not in game shape, not ready in any way. I know they're trying to make him happen because he's a fantastic story and a great guy and fans love him. It's not happening. So they're not going to be able to run. So you're talking about 45 to 50 dropbacks every single week. You're going to get it again here. And that makes me not so bearish on Jameis as a streaming option.
Jameis was one guy already this week I've kind of had a change of heart on. On the Sunday night recap show, I was laying out just how absurdly difficult the Browns schedule is the next month, because it is absurd. It is the Steelers, then the Broncos, then the Steelers again, then the Chiefs. That is a gauntlet for a quarterback. And Kyle and I were talking Sunday night. It's I guess it's just maybe kind of the end of the Jameis streamer season. Then when I was doing the rankings today, I'm like, no, actually, I mean, Jameis, the dude's throwing a bad scenario for Jameis is 35 attempts. He's almost certainly throwing 40. He's probably quite likely throwing 45. And I actually kind of talked myself back into Jameis streamer season, even against the Steelers. I
mean, with the bye weeks, I think you have to. I do have a stat here, a coping stat for those of us who might have to start Winston in week 12. 71% of the yards gained against Pittsburgh this year have come through the air. That's the 4th highest rate in the league. So, if you're gaining yards on the Steelers, it's going to be through the air.
Denny, so sticking, why was I even talking about Jameis? I was talking about Jameis when we weren't even to the Steelers game.
Well.
Man, I feel out of sync today.
I'm sorry. I messed you up by disappearing.
No, you didn't. So I said we actually answered my next agenda question before I answered it. I was to say, is this the week the Jameis joyride ends? And we were already talking about it, and the answer is no. It is not. The joyride now might drive into the ditch a few times this week.
Yeah,
where he needs to be towed like out of like the gully that he's driven the car into. But then he just immediately resumes going 85.
Different as you do. The implied total for the Browns is 16 right now.
That's absurd. That is like genuinely absurd.
And it dropped from 19.5 to 16. And I had to look. I was like, oh, Jameis must have, torn something in practice or something.
Adam tells us, there's news. It's the first weather game of the year. It's the first fantasy weather game freak out, which, as you and I know from many years of experience, never matters.
It doesn't matter.
It matters like twice a year. Every time it matters, I will say it's in Cleveland, and the game is in Cleveland Thursday night.
Right, which again they need a dome, but it is insane that after Halloween, really, you can't rely on like actual football conditions in Cleveland.
No, he says freezing temperatures and precipitation with 20-mile-per-hour sustained winds. Yeah, it's over.
Freezing temperatures?
Yeah, it's never been more over. Is it over for the Browns pass catchers? Because they were coming off their bye. I had been wondering if Jerry Jeudy was going to supplant Cedric Tillman. And this didn't really make sense that Tillman was being featured over Jerry Jeudy. It wasn't like a full supplanting, I'll say, but Jerry Jeudy in New Orleans was the clear-cut Browns wide receiver one. Cedric Tillman still had 8 targets. Jerry Jeudy had 11, though. Just what's going on with this Browns receiver core, that coming out of a bye, we're probably getting like a more accurate picture of what they want to do with their new quarterback, Jameis Winston. Or, was it a one-game sample size? Maybe Jerry Jeudy had a good matchup. What do we tell people about the Browns pass catchers?
Yeah, I mean, you take away the 89-yard touchdown that Jeudy had against New Orleans, and it really was not a good game. And it's that sort of thing. And I was actually shocked to see how evenly distributed both targets and air yards have been for Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, and Cedric Tillman since Winston took over under center for Cleveland. Cedric Tillman leads the team with 395 air yards. Okay. Elijah Moore, 388 air yards, and Jerry Jeudy, 360 air yards.
Wow.
So it's very much split up. Last week, like you said, I mean, yes, Jeudy leads the team barely with 11 targets, and Njoku sees 10. Both Moore and Tillman see 8. So the ball is actually being distributed pretty well among all these guys. I still think Tillman is the best big play guy. And I know I'm not trying not to dismiss Jeudy a week after he has a 90-yard touchdown.
Yeah, curious.
But I'm not ready to pull the plug in 12-team leagues on Tillman.
Are we pulling the plug on Russell Wilson as a QB1 streamer? I said in the rundown he was due for a letdown. I mean, we actually had the letdown already. The Ravens allow the most passing yards in the league. He barely got over 200. He did not get a score. He could not lead a single touchdown drive.
Yeah.
He thankfully led 6 field goal drives. But Russ had been living dangerously for a while. And it was kind of quite clearly not really a top 20 quarterback. He'll be top 20 this week because 6 teams are on bye. But have we seen the peak of fantasy Russell Wilson this year? And not that it was some glorious peak either.
No. Yeah, no, it's over. He was living off touchdowns. Mentioned it in the regression files, and this is what happens. Like a bunch of moonball touchdowns on very limited drop back volume. Okay, it works 1 week or maybe 2, but it's going to collapse. Okay, and the Steelers were extremely run heavy, second run heaviest team in the league in Week 11 against Baltimore, against again the most prominent pass funnel, not just of the season, but in recent living memory. Okay. And they established it and they said, no, Russ is not going to lose this game. And he tried to lose it anyway. Horrible performance. I think everybody needs to get off of him. Also, you have Arthur Smith coming out on Tuesday and saying, we wanted to, and we should have used Justin Fields more. That's bad. So, I mean, I think it's, super flex only, going forward for Russell Wilson. And you can't live off of that profile forever.
We have to use the guy who almost cost us the game, Justin Fields, when he slid short of the first down mark.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
That was a horrible football IQ play. That was a real bad mistake from Justin Fields.
I don't really understand what that guy's thinking sometimes.
I don't understand why we're still talking about this game. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this. Notre Dame continues to march towards the college football playoff, and this Saturday night they take on the literal army at Yankee Stadium. NBC and Peacock will lead you up to kickoff beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Well, good luck.
Good luck. Yeah. I'd like to play the army in football. This is one of my favorite tangents and like Jerry Seinfeld type riffs. Like, yeah, how does the army have a football team? Crazy. The literal army has a football team. And,
yeah. Well, what's the longtime meme? You got to believe the troops could.
I can't be the only one that thinks the team of the troops could wreck this league. It was an all-time Twitter meme.
It's such a great post.
It is still busted out by people from time to time. Notre Dame playing the literal army at Yankee Stadium for some reason. Notre Dame likes to play in a lot of exotic locales. I will be watching. I love the spectacle. Going to be quite a spectacle on NBC and Peacock. Then it was a spectacle when Anthony Richardson made all the haters choke on their tears. in week 11 against the New York Jets. Probably the best start of Anthony Richardson's career. 272 yards passing was a new career high by 39. We had a second 2-touchdown game on the ground. It's a cliche, but he was a rolling ball of butcher knives with the ball in his hand. Like, genuinely could not be stopped at the goal line. A really good start. The bad stuff was still there, though. Like, the shorter the pass was, the less accurate it was. Like, just crazy inaccuracy on like screens and dump offs. Like, really concerning stuff. But it was a good overall start. But it was like a total red herring ahead of just a brutal matchup in the Lions. The Lions allow a pretty decent amount of raw passing yards because teams are always playing from behind and passing against them. But they have the lowest quarterback rating against in the entire NFL. They have twice as many interceptions as touchdowns, 14 picks to 7 passing scores allowed. Is this just like the ultimate crash back down to earth game for Anthony Richardson? Or is there something to cling to, like a guy who could maybe actually make hay of comeback mode against the Lions?
I don't think that he can make the hay in that sort of situation. I mean, the rushing is everything here. This past week he had 10 rushing attempts. It's more than we had seen. He had one game with 14 rushing attempts, but beyond that, it's a lot of 4, 6, 6, whatever. So yeah, double-digit rushing attempts will make the difference, especially if they're committed to using him inside the 10-yard line as a rusher. Like, that changes the calculus. That means that from a fantasy standpoint, he can come back. He can overcome a terrible passing performance, which he probably will have here. That's the hope. If he's running more, does he get dinged up? I mean, judging by the history, probably. So it's a little dicey, but I think that he's still interesting because of because of the rushing. I was looking at the Colts pass rate over expected for week 11, 16% under their expected pass rate. No one was run heavier.
And to be honest, that's going to go lower against the Lions. I mean, they know they have no chance to win this game if like he's dropping back to pass like every other play. Like is this going to maybe? I guess if they fall behind by 3 scores, they have no choice. But they can somehow keep this game close. I feel like we might see like one of the lowest pass rate over expected games by any team all season in this game.
If it's close, you're talking about probably minus 18 to 20%, and that just destroys volume for everybody. I know Downs is making big plays, and you're going to start him. But just be aware if this is a close or is somewhat neutral game between these two teams, it could be bad for Downs. I mean, what you want is runaway game script, I think.
So like it's a tough spot as we just laid out, but 6 teams on bye. The dual threat will be getting a lot of people's attention. Anthony Richardson against the Detroit Lions. I almost said the Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Lions are Drake May in Miami against the Dolphins.
Drake May.
I have Drake May ranked higher right now, but I get the feeling I was setting a lineup and I saw both Anthony Richardson and Drake May there. My brain like, come on, dude. Like,
well, because May's running too, and he's
running, but he's getting blown up every time he runs.
I mean, so is Richardson.
He is, but I get the feeling like if I was seriously setting a lineup, my brain like stop. Drake May get out, like stop.
I think we need to work on your Drake May haterism because he's good.
No, he is good. The problem with Drake May is I feel like they're going to try to curtail the rushing down the stretch here to protect his health. He's dropping back like an insane amount of times. So there's no one to throw to. You cannot score fantasy points when it's Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, and Hunter Henry. That Drake May is passing basically every test except the protecting himself test. And I just feel like it's going to be kind of a less fantasy-friendly game than people are assuming down the stretch. They are not going to let this guy just go run wild down the stretch because they know he's their future. He cannot suffer another concussion. And every time he goes in the open field, he gets like hit by like a Honda Civic. Yeah. It's like real bad.
Yeah, I mean, it actually might be better if a Honda Civic hit him than a linebacker at this point.
It's true.
Yeah, I would say he needs to work on not being destroyed every time he leaves the pocket.
Real quick, Anthony Richardson or Sam Darnold against the Bears?
Darnold.
I have Anthony Richardson one spot. Sam Darnold. That's a ranking I'm really going to have to work on. One guy we're not debating is Bo Nix, who had he had already been ascending the rankings for weeks and weeks and weeks. He's still been mostly talked about as a streamer, though. Last week was kind of the first time he was a consensus QB1. He aced the test in runaway fashion. I believe the QB4 overall day for week 11. Now he's looking for momentum. He's got an amazing matchup in the Raiders. He'll be in the top 10 in rankings everywhere. It won't really matter where you're reading them. Bo Nix will be ranked as a clear QB1. I'm not really asking about the wisdom of that. Just what's the statistical lay of the land with a guy who continues to ascend. I know you had talked about in the past that he had gotten far more accurate, like in the intermediate areas of the field. Denny, what's going on lately?
Yeah, I mean the passing, the accuracy has jumped by miles since week 1, where he was missing very easy throws, and the metrics bared that out. I mentioned on Sunday night's recap show that from week 1 to 5, Bo Nix was 30th out of 32 qualifying quarterbacks in accuracy on passes between 0 and 10 yards. Okay, so almost bottom of the barrel. Since then, he's the 7th best as far as accuracy on 0 to 10 from 0 to 10 yard range. So that makes a huge difference for him. Now he is distributing it kind of evenly among pass catchers, so there's no clear beneficiary besides Courtland Sutton, of course, who you're playing. But there's no guy that jumps out as oh, well, because this is happening now, so-and-so is viable. Maybe Devon Vele, maybe if you're in a deep league and you're desperate, that sort of thing. But he is another great matchup this week, and he's being protected. The Broncos are doing a great job of keeping him clean, keeping him upright. And he's delivering more accurate passes. The rushing is not there. I wrote him up in the regression files, but that's okay. That's okay. I think from a fantasy standpoint, his profile is pretty sturdy right now as far as the floor goes.
I had no idea you were a little Jordan Humphrey hater.
I'm not. I actually love my little Jordan Humphrey, but he is not running many routes. One last thing on the Broncos is that they're pretty pass heavy in the red zone, and they seem to really trust Bo Nix, and they have a really against who do they play? Falcons last week. They had a lot of really good, well-designed red zone plays where Bo Nix was getting it out quickly. He's not taking sacks. You could do worse.
You could do worse. They don't trust their running backs kind of in any situation. Sure. And Sean Payton has always been one of the best short yardage play designers. That's what he lives for, is cool plays to gain 5 yards. Uh-huh. So that's actually not surprising to hear that. And it's interesting, with the passing that the tide has definitely lifted Courtland Sutton's boat. He's quietly kind of forced his way back in the top 20, maybe even the top 15 or 16. He has been very even distribution behind Courtland Sutton. Devon Vele is really the only one I would even consider, and he's not really in the top 48. But the Broncos offense could be a font of fantasy goodness down the stretch. Mike Evans, we think, is finally coming back from his hamstring injury, Denny. The matchup is, it's a good one in the New York Giants. What do we think? Provided he does return. It's only Tuesday. But Mike Evans returns. What is it? What is that? What is its effect on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense?
It is disastrous for all the other pass catchers besides Kate Otten, I think.
God, thank God.
Yeah, no,
don't say it's disastrous for Kate Otten.
No. Kate Otten it's still Otten season. Gronk Otten is still happening. But yeah, I mean, Evans is just gonna, if he's fully healthy, is gonna gobble up air yards and targets here. So like the whole Sterling Shepard thing, the whole McMillan thing, God, what a disaster that was.
Dude, McMillan hasn't had a target since October. He should. Even if Mike Evans didn't play, I wasn't going to rank him.
I mean, look, Todd Bowles tried to tell us.
He did.
Like he was like, I mean, when Godwin and Evans both went down in that Monday night game, and the beat writers were like, so what about McMillan, Jalen McMillan? He's going to be your guy now, and he was like, the kid's not ready, not even close.
He walked off this.
And let me tell you, I covered the next game for the Bucs, and I can say Todd Bowles was onto something. Because that kid, he doesn't know where to go, doesn't know what his role on the field is. He's miscommunicating with everybody. He's being screamed at by the coaches, by veterans. Wow. He has a long way to go. Woo, poor kid.
Mike Evans, no fears, qualms, putting him back in the top 10 right off the bat. I take it.
No, I think you gotta roll with him. I mean, they didn't rush him back. I mean, he's been out for 5 weeks now.
That is true. That is the really good sign. The only bad sign is that it's such a natural return date, after the bye, that I could see them maybe forcing it still, because these are sometimes multi-month injuries, and I just wonder if there's a danger, like they always had the post-bye game circled, surely he'll be healthy then, and that maybe he won't be, because he was playing through this too for a long time before it actually truly popped. But all signs do point to Mike Evans being back, and all signs do point to us taking a really short break. We'll be right back after this. This Sunday night, two teams battle for playoff positioning when Jalen Hurts and the Eagles fly west for a clash with Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Coverage of the matchup begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. Sunday Night Football in the Kroenke Dome for the second consecutive week, Denny. Kroenke Dome, no strangers to the Seattle Seahawks. They are battling the Rams and the just truly battle royale NFC West. All four teams are at least 500. The Seahawks, they were 3-0. Then they were 3-4. They're a team that's kind of fighting for survival. Maybe just doing the things that actually make sense instead of just running their idealized version of their offense. Maybe they're just running the offense they actually need to run. And that seemed like that included last weekend Jason overtaking DK Metcalf is the primary option. There were some interesting tweets out there. Our Nick Bottaford pointed this out too, that in the first half, they were still trying to make alpha DK happen. And they just returned JSN is purely underneath. You're the cheap chain mover type guy. But then in the second half of the game on the line against the 49ers, JSN just kind of took over. Is it a 1/2 sample size though? Nothing to really read into there. Or do we think that the Seahawks have kind of gotten to the point where they can't unsee how talented JSN is? It's finally showing up on the field. And that if maybe there's a changing of the guard here where JSN, he was kind of out targeting DK Metcalf before. Maybe we'll actually outproduce him now. Just what is your read of the situation between DK Metcalf and JSN?
Yeah, I saw your Sunday Aftermath piece, and you mentioned that, and I know this must have been painful for you, and it was painful to read, but I think it is probably true where JSN is probably the wide receiver one going forward, and there's nothing millennials can do about it. But he's come on. They seem to have really focused. The reports of them really centering the passing game around him seem to have been real, have been true. He's seeing a lot of easy button targets, which is awesome for fantasy. Yes, he can still hit a big play here or there, running after the catch, maybe seeing a downfield shot or two, but he's seeing so much underneath, and Geno Smith seems to lock onto him. So I think that DK probably becomes a little more volatile than he was early in the season. And JSN is kind of a smash week in and week out in a Seahawks offense that continues to be pass heavy. I do just wonder if this could be the classic. It ends up working in DK's favor because JSN was already getting the easy button stuff. Now he is, I feel getting a little more big play opportunities and maybe even working down the field a little more. And if defenses just have to start, if JSN's just truly come into his own and they're not using him in such a one-dimensional way anymore,
and defenses have to start worrying about JSN down the field, I do wonder if that kind of like makes life easier for DK Metcalf to just do what he does best and like terrorize people on the boundary.
Right.
And this is maybe not even a bad thing for DK Metcalf. It's one of my favorite storylines in the NFL right now because I think they could just both go like totally nuts. Now, DK, we love DK. We drafted him everywhere, but he is just like miscast for like that 12 target role.
I agree.
Not him. That's not him.
I mean, he's an old school. He's a 90s receiver, yes. like just the size. And, the modern game calls for a JSN, largely because
they call for Kyle Dvorak in a football uniform.
Yeah, right. You have the safeties have never been higher and they're not coming down anytime soon. And
they're stuck up there. They're actually waiting for like a helicopter to rescue the safety.
They're stuck in the rafters.
Yeah.
No one even knows where they are anymore. They're hungry and thirsty.
They're so thirsty. so thirsty.
But it means that the Metcalf types are kind of hindered and then JSN just works underneath and it all happens. I mean. I think the switch is clearly happened. Tyler Lockett's not a thing anymore, except for like if you're in super crazy deep leagues. The tight ends don't see any action.
No.
The whole Walker PPR scam seems to be over. It's all
as it should be.
It's all in service of Jaxon Smith-Njigba.
It is, and Tyler Lockett. We've counted him out early, like 7 or 8 too many times, but. This would be the most insane Tyler Lockett rug pull yet, and I just don't see it happening. I do think they have finally given up the ghost on who's had such a good career, but I don't think is like crashing this party. Yeah, the Kenneth Walker PPR stuff, that was bleak. That needed to go. What even was that?
I liked it very much, actually.
Well, I liked it, but it was real not smart. Like it was not good football.
No, probably not. I mean, anytime your passing attack revolves around checking down to your running back, it's over. I mean, that's what the Saints have been bad forever because Alvin Kamara has been the centerpiece of their offense. It's not that's no way to go.
No way to go. That's one overtaking situation. Is Jauan Jennings has he just overtaken all the competition in San Francisco? Or I ranked Jauan Jennings as a top 20 receiver last weekend. Because I was just like, this is every time he's played, he's been the target commander. And I just like decided to gamble and accept that was the reality of the 49ers offense. And it just very much was again against the Seahawks in a game that they lost. But Jauan Jennings has somehow become like the focal point of this 49ers offense. There was variables. George Kittle was out. George Kittle hopefully be back this weekend, Denny. But has Jauan Jennings just kind of become inevitable in this 49ers offense? And not many people were probably in a position to bench Jauan Jennings, but has he become just unbenchable? And should he be ranked ahead of Deebo Samuel, who's just looking more and more like a role player every week?
Yeah, I mean, it is probably time to switch that ranking. But I mean, just for fantasy purposes, you're still playing both guys. I looked into the targets per route run for both Deebo and Jennings, and it's pretty great actually for Jauan Jennings. On the season. Jennings has been targeted on 26% of his routes. Deebo is at 21%. Over the past 3 games, Jennings is at 29%, targeted on 29% of his targets. That's elite territory.
29% of his routes, by the way. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes, 29% of his routes. Yeah, and that's elite. That's where like Brandon Ayuk was for a while, and so he's a great like I don't know wide receiver 2, but like. Wide receiver 1 upside weekly? I don't know.
He could be a wide receiver 1. That actually is kind of the deal with Jauan Jennings. Like no one really wants to say that. It's like the classic. Everyone's kind of sitting around like people starting to like whisper in the audience. Yeah. Like I don't know, dude.
Are you going to do it?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like let's be real. He's a wide receiver 1, and the biggest rug pull of all time happens then. But I just Shanny is like. No one gets more in their own head than Kyle Shanahan.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Jauan Jennings is like the answer, the skeleton key to his offense.
But I think this is a Purdy thing more than I don't feel like a lot of these plays are designed specifically for Jennings. It's just that he's getting open.
That's an absolutely great take, actually. Maybe Purdy is just maybe it is like transcending the Shananism of this offense. It's like dude, like I just gotta throw it to
right,
man. Like Yeah, this is a real cool Debo play that we worked on for some reason for 2 hours on Wednesday. And the first time we ran it gained 3 yards.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to throw it to Jauan Jennings and see what happens.
And Purdy's letting it rip. I mean, Purdy's, air yards per attempt, everything, is skyrocketed over last year. And I think that's great for a guy like Jennings who needs those sort of targets. And because he's not being targeted in the short areas, right? It's in the intermediate and it's downfield. And he's good at contested catches. He gets open. Purdy seems to like him. I mean, it fits. It just fits well for him.
Is Purdy? I'm the captain nowing Kyle Shanahan.
Honestly, it could be. I mean, really, like enough. Like he might be enough.
Enough. Yeah,
like I know
someone finally had the guts to say enough.
Like I know the computers are telling you that Deebo Samuel should get 11 2-yard targets a game, and I'm telling you we're not doing that anymore. I'm throwing it down. Of course, the Niners stink. So maybe,
of course, they'll never see another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean they're terrible. So maybe Shanahan was onto something. But just from a reality standpoint, maybe that's what's happening.
Yeah, real quick, Debo a role player? Like he's not spiked a week in a real long time.
I don't know.
He hasn't had more than his season high for rushing was in week 1, 23. He has not exceeded 15 yards rushing since then. He's really stuck on like 5 to 7 weekly targets. Like at some point he will spike a week, but I don't know, man. I'm starting to rank him as like a role player, like the wide receiver 2-3 borderline, instead of pretending like he's a wide receiver 10 to 15, basically. Do you agree with that?
I mean, it used to be, where George Kittle was out. So you're like, oh, well, it's a Debo game. But that was not the case last week, where against Seattle, the Niners were even 4% over their expected pass rate, and it still didn't happen. Like you're playing him, but I think that the offense has clearly shifted toward not prioritizing him. Also, CMC has traditionally been very bad for Debo from a fantasy standpoint.
Very good points. We were going to talk about Jaden Daniels, the Panthers. We're going to save that for Thursday in our Week 12 preview show when Kyle Dvorak joins us. A lot of moving parts in Carolina, a lot of concerns with the Commanders, which we did kind of get to earlier. But we'll go in greater depth on Jaden Daniels' recent struggles on our Week 12 preview. Denny goes into great detail in everything, in his regression files, in his funnel report, which will come out on Friday, and his chat on Friday at noon Eastern. I'll try to get in everything I can in my rankings column coming out Thursday morning. And then, of course, our preview show with Kyle on Thursday. So for Denny, I'm Pat. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in 2 days.